Well, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has caused the biggest European refugee crisis and the fastest forced population movement since the end of World War II. According to the United Nations, more than 7.5 million people have fled Ukraine since the war began. In addition, nearly 7 million Ukrainians are internally displaced. UNICEF says that with every second that passes, a Ukrainian child becomes a refugee. Well, the plight of Ukrainian refugees is another issue being discussed at the World Economic Forum in Davos. DW correspondent Ben Fazulin caught up with Kelly T. Clements, the Deputy High Commissioner of the UN's refugee agency, the UNHCR.
Deputy High Commissioner, we've heard here in Davos that Russia's war in Ukraine has sparked the 21st century's biggest refugee crisis. The majority of those refugees ending up in Russia, what's their fate, first of all?
Well, in fact, this has been the fastest moving, largest since World War II. People staying within Ukraine and people also going to neighboring countries and to anywhere really that they can seek safety. A third of Ukraine has been displaced inside the country and neighboring countries. In Russia, we have a very small operational footprint in terms of our presence in Russia itself. We have a larger presence in other neighboring countries, supporting governments to be able to provide protection and aid and really anything that those refugees and others fleeing the war in Ukraine need. Inside the country, the situation is quite dynamic. People are moving constantly with the bombardment that continues to happen. The war continues to rage on, and it moves. People are moving, trying to find safety, trying to find a warm place to stay during these very cold months in Ukraine.
What about the thousands of children as well who are being put up to adoption in Russia? We heard from Ukraine's First Lady yesterday that these children, basically their memories are being wiped by Moscow's campaign.
War is horrible on civilians, children, women, men, and this war is no different. We have said from the very beginning, guardians and those that can take care of children who may have lost parents, that is the first step. Protection is what we aim to achieve. We're working very closely with the government to try to make sure that those within Ukraine are well protected. We're in touch with the authorities in Russia to make sure that children that may find themselves in the Russian Federation are also protected. War is not, takes many lives, but it also takes many livelihoods, and we have seen really quite devastating impacts in Ukraine.
So what should Ukrainians do? Should they stay or should they go?
These are choices that they need to make. It's a very dynamic situation. There are people going back and forth across the border, check on property, reunite with family members, and obviously many men and young males have not been able to leave the country. So there's a lot of family reunification that's taking place. People will go when it's safe. They'll go when they have a place that they can actually live safely, be able to reestablish their livelihoods. Until then, it's going to be very difficult for them to return in large numbers. And you've seen, of course, the warnings and the signals that the Ukrainian government have told their people. Please, not in the winter months. Fuel is difficult. Infrastructure has been severely damaged in many parts of the country, and energy is hard to find. So at these stages, it's going to be a personal choice. But they'll need to make that themselves.
Are you seeing signs, though, of a second wave following the huge outflow of mainly women and children at the beginning of the war?
Not at this stage, but then again, we're in the heart of winter, where it's cold, where people are trying to hunker down and trying to get through the worst of this conflict. We'll have to see what becomes in terms of the war, what becomes when the weather turns a little bit warmer, and people will make those personal choices. At this stage, we want to be prepared for anything. We work with a large number of partners. We're supporting the government and the neighboring countries to be able to support the very generous hosting that they've had now for almost a year.
You want to be prepared, but how prepared is the EU for more refugees?
Well, the EU, of course, has taken the lion's share of refugees at this point. As I mentioned, a third of Ukraine has been displaced. About 8 million refugees across the continent. About 5 million have registered through the Temporary Protection Directive that the EU established within just a couple of days of the war breaking out. This is essential. It's about inclusion. It's about refugees being able to work, put kids in school, being able to avail themselves of health services and the like. And this, in terms of preparation, I think we're all doing contingency planning. We hope it doesn't get worse, but we have to be prepared for it if it does.
Deputy High Commissioner, thank you very much for being on DW News.
Thank you.